Demonstration.
Good morning and welcome to the August 14th meeting of the West Virginia Delegation. Again with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice President Gabriel. And now if we could have the board members introduce themselves.
Bob Dunleavy of High County. Gabriel Harrison.
Nancy White, Harrison County.
Scott Roach-Truck, Monongalia County.
Deborah Sullivan, Kanawha County.
Daniel Snavely, Putnam County.
Greg Wooten, Logan County.
Sorry, I missed my cue. Sarah Tucker, Chancellor of Higher Education.
And I believe Mr. Hardesty is on the phone. No. And our staff members, if you would please introduce yourselves.
Good morning. If we can start with Deputy White with introductions.
Good morning, Sonia White, Deputy Superintendent.
Tina Payne,
Unknown
paralegal and
participant
legislative
is now exiting.
liaison.
Jonah Adkins, Director, School Safety at Tiered Support Systems.
Vaughn Rady, Director of Assessment. Mark Moore, Office of Communications.
Derek Lambert, Manager, PK-12 Academic Support.
Eric Close, Director of PK-12 Academic Support.
Clinton Birch, Assistant Superintendent.
Kelly Griffith, Manager of Pre-K-12 Academic Support.
Alex Kreiner, Accountability.
Unknown participant is now joining.
And Mr.
And Talbot, Office of Communications.
Christy Day, Office of Communications.
Dave Cartwright, Infrastructure Network Operations.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as it is?
So moved.
Been moved by Mr. Road-Truck, seconded by Mr. Dunleavy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Aye.
And Mr. Hardesty has joined us, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. The third item on the agenda is recognitions. Ms. Day?
Good morning, President White, Vice President Gabriel, Superintendent Blatt, and members of the board. We'll ask Derek Lambert to come up, who will recognize some very special students who are with us today.
Good morning, President White, Vice President Gabriel, board members, Superintendent Blatt. I have the honor to be here today on behalf of the Unite with Numeracy implementation team. As part of the Unite with Numeracy initiative, the West Virginia Department of Education invited teachers and students to participate in a contest to design the mathematical habits of mind. The mathematical habits of mind represent the qualities of mathematicians and the expertise educators should foster for student success in mathematics. Students from all grade levels were invited to submit their creations of the 8 mathematical habits of mind. Judges selected the winners, and their submissions were inspired for the final designs, which I hope everyone was able to take a look at out in the foyer. One entry was selected to represent the overall initiative. The posters have been printed and were distributed to all math educators who attended Invest over the past summer. The teachers will display the posters in their schools and classrooms to promote how math influences our everyday life. Special thanks to the 205 students who participated in the contest, and congratulations to the artists whose work were selected to represent each of the mathematical habits of mind. Today, we have some of the student winners, their families, teachers, and superintendents here with us today. If you're here, please stand. So we do have 3 individual student winners here with us today. The first winner from Morgantown High School in Monongalia County is Miranda Barger. From George Washington High School here in Kanawha County, we have Sabota Bree. Would you like to say?
Good morning, everybody. I don't have much to say, except for I'm very thankful for this opportunity. I really admire the mathematical habits of mind push. I believe creativity and math are the staples of society, and this is the perfect combination of the two of those. And that's all. Thank you for listening.
And from Bridgeport Middle in Harrison County, we have Avia Tower. Those 3 were the only students that were able to join us today. However, we do have Mrs. Yater, who's the math teacher at Doddridge County High School, and the superintendent, Cochran of Doddridge County, who are with us today to represent the 3 winners that Doddridge County High School had. Unfortunately, they weren't able to be here because today was their first day of school and they did not want to miss school. So that's amazing. So they deserve a round of applause. On behalf of Tim Flatley, the secondary math coordinator, and the overall Unite with Numeracy implementation team, I would like to extend a special thank you to the West Virginia Board of Education, Superintendent Blatt, Deputy Superintendent White, and Assistant Superintendent Birch for their support in all things that we have done and plan to do with the Unite with Numeracy initiative. Thank you.
If those in attendance that we just recognized, if everyone would come up, we'll do a picture with the board.
unknown participant is now exiting.
One more.
Thank you all so much. I'll keep them too. That's good. Keep them too. That's another.
Oh, sorry. All right. It's 1, 2, 3. Titles. Sorry.
Hey, how are you?
Crashing you. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Oh, this is like this.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is delegations. Ms. Day.
Good morning again. We have 5 delegations today. The first is Chad Conley, and he will discuss the topic of Wood County Board of Education new school construction. Mr. Conley.
Good morning, board members and board president and superintendent. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I'm coming down here from Wood County. I wanted to give you some information about the Wood County Board of Education and their proposed plans for building a new school in Vienna, West Virginia. The Wood County Board of Education has had many ongoing issues over the last several months. What I'm about to present to you today is further proof of their willful neglect and continued dereliction of duty. In 2022, voters of Wood County voted yes to a school bond that would allow the Wood County Board of Education to complete many projects, including building 3 new schools in Wood County, one of these schools being in Vienna, West Virginia, to consolidate Neal Elementary and Vienna Elementary schools. There's been documents recently discovered by a concerned citizen of Vienna who shared this information with me. These documents have raised concerns about the transparency and lack of due diligence from the Wood County Board of Education. It was initially indicated that the Wood County Board of Education would build the new school on the same property that is currently occupied by Vienna Elementary School. During a Wood County Board of Education meeting in the spring, it was revealed that a new location to build on had been identified. The proposed location is on an 11-acre tract of land within Jackson Memorial Park in Vienna, West Virginia. This is a municipal property owned by the city of Vienna. The Wood County Board of Education requested permission from the city of Vienna to enter the property and begin conducting due diligence studies. Vienna City Council unanimously granted this permission. Additionally, the Wood County Board of Education proposed a deal to the city of Vienna to exchange an old school building known as Maplewood and the Wood County Board of Education owned property, which the current Vienna Elementary School sits on, for an 11-acre tract of land located in Jackson Memorial Park. Citizens of Vienna have expressed concerns about this proposal and the process leading up to it. After conducting their own research, a citizen of Vienna uncovered some distressing information. It had been discovered that the entire landmass of Jackson Memorial Park had been used as collateral to secure a loan/bond from Huntington National Bank for pool renovations in the amount of $3 million. This has raised some serious red flags considering that the park is such a significant public asset. There was also an ordinance passed in 1965 that strictly prohibits the park board from incurring debt or liabilities that anticipate the levy or income of any future fiscal year. The lack of a formal request for an independent real estate study or appraisal of the property has added to the concerns raised by the citizens of Vienna. There are also land covenants associated with the tract of land in this proposed deal between the City of Vienna and the Wood County Board of Education. These covenants restrict use of land for public outdoor recreation and stipulate that expecting and reserving all oil, gas, and minerals in and underlying said tracts. The second part of the covenants and agrees that the above described tract of land shall at all times be used as a public park and shall be known as Jackson Memorial Park. It being further agreed that this is a covenant that runs with the land. Also, any conversion of the land must receive written approval from the U.S. Secretary of the Interior if land and water conservation funding was used to purchase and develop the land. The existence of these covenants raise legal questions about utilizing the proper approval and compliance. The Wood County Board of Education, unfortunately, has a history of not being good stewards of taxpayer money regarding the bond that was passed in 22. They seem to think that since the bond was passed, they can do whatever they want and however they want without regard to public opinion. Recently, the Board of Education in Wood County spent over $700,000 on a piece of property in Lubeck, West Virginia, to build a new school there. This piece of property they purchased appraised for approximately $375,000, with the land only being appraised at $65,000. There's a house on there, also another piece of property as well, that appraised for $300,000. On top of this, the land they purchased in Lubeck does not have adequate infrastructure to support a school. The Board of Education will have to spend another $650,000 to install or upgrade infrastructure. They have spent almost $1.5 million on this piece of land before they even break ground. In closing, I would like to let the State Department of Education know that I, along with many other concerned citizens in Wood County, have presented information. Can I take like one more minute? Okay. I, along with many other concerned citizens of Wood County, have presented this information and raised our concerns with the County Board of Education during meetings and town halls and have only been met with resistance and accusations of not knowing what we're talking about. The Wood County Board of Education seems to think they are not accountable to anyone, and I'm here this morning to ask the State Department of Education to hold the Wood County Board of Education accountable for their negligence and dereliction of duty. Thank you.
Next delegation is Tamaya Browder with West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy to discuss school discipline.
Good morning. Greetings to the board and everyone in attendance. My name is Tamaya Browder. I am the new Education Policy Fellow with the West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy. My role is pretty new, but my aim is really to advance public policies to increase educational opportunities, as well as eliminate inequities in education access, quality, and attainment for students throughout West Virginia. We recently reviewed the 2022 to 23 school discipline data. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to look at our website, wvpolicy.org, to review the fact sheet in full. But in this review, we found that out of the approximately 148,000 school discipline incidents during the school year, there was significant use of suspension to address behavioral issues. Overall, there were over 55,000 days of learning lost to in-school suspension, as well as about 120,000 days lost to out-of-school suspension. There were also significant disparities across student groups, in particular male students, Black, multiracial, students with disabilities, those in foster care, and unhoused students were disproportionately suspended for both in-school and out-of-school suspension compared to their peers. Black, female, and students in foster care were also suspended for longer periods of time compared to their counterparts. This data was prior to the implementation of House Bill 2890, which passed in 2023, but it is cause for consideration on how impactful this bill may be. So in the coming school year, I urge you all to consider how essential it is that we take a closer look at the use of suspension in our schools, as well as analyze the data from the 2023 to 24 school year to see the actual impact of this bill and consider how other similar bills such as Senate Bill 614 and House Bill 4776, which were considered earlier this year, could impact our West Virginia students. This is especially important due to the negative impacts of exclusion, such as suspension and expulsion on students, and it can cause losses of learning, negative academic performance, school dropouts, and increased interaction with law enforcement and the criminal legal system. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Mickey Blackwell with West Virginia Principals Association.
Good morning, everyone. Mickey Blackwell, Principal Association, the largest group of school principals in the state of West Virginia. And it's August and school's starting, so let's always start as we always do on a positive note for the year. I'd just like to thank everybody for their support for the past year and remind everyone of the importance of what we have for this year coming up. I hope that we can focus on the positives and that we can all work together to make sure that we need to do what we need to do, and that is to meet the needs of our kids. I invite you to stop and visit a school. I invite you to call the principal ahead of time before you decide to visit. As a former principal, there's nothing more happy than to find out that a board member's dropping by and they're on the way from Dairy Queen and they're coming over. So make sure that stop in, visit. I know you go to games. I know you go to other places, but just stop in and shake some folks' hands and tell them that you appreciate what they do. And if you can do it for a week, you won't believe the changes it'll make, and you won't believe the positive feelings that you'll endure. And it's something that we need, and it's something that we need from everyone. As we go through the year, I hope we have the opportunity to make improvements in our homeschooling programs. That's something that we'll be talking about. I hope that we are able to work on getting full-time principals and assistant principals in every school across the state. I hope that we can work on improving our facilities, and I hope that we can work on making sure that every child has the right to read the books that they choose to read and not the books that are chosen for them by others. So I want to say thank you to everything that you do. Kristen Oxley was here. I told her to stay so I could brag on her. She was the math coordinator for Kanawha County Schools, and back in 1989, she replaced me when I became an acting principal over at Tyler's school. And she is one of the best teachers on the face of the earth. And I said, if you'll just stay, I'll brag on you. And like all great teachers, she said, I'm getting out of here before you open your mouth. And I said, well, listen to it if you can, because I'm going to brag on you for being a great teacher. And that's what we need. We need more great teachers. We need more great administrators, and we need more great parents who are willing to support our schools. And I want to thank all of you folks. I want to welcome President White today. I know that it's going to be a great time with her, as well as it was with President Hardesty. So thank you, folks. Oh, and we just finished our first semester of the doc program at West Virginia State University. So if you would like to hear all about it when I have more than 3 minutes, feel free to reach out to me, and I can put you in contact with some of the other folks that I work with, and we would love to discuss the first program in the history of West Virginia State University, the first doc program. We got our grades in last week, and we start school on Monday. And if you want to come down and visit me, I won't be doing bus duty or a dance. That's the difference in public school and public education, but we will be there. Have a great school year, everyone. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Fred Albert with AFT West Virginia to speak on beginning of a new school year.
Good morning. I am Fred Albert, President of AFT West Virginia. Good morning, President White, Vice President Gabriel, Chancellor Tucker, and honorable board members, and Superintendent Blatt. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's the best time of the year. You know, it's an exciting time. I have been fortunate enough to travel around and meet with new teachers. We've been busy doing that. It is so exciting. I love seeing their enthusiasm, their young faces, and I hope 20 years from now, they will be just as excited as they are right now. The other day in Kanawha County, there were over 100 new teachers in attendance, and I'm so pleased to say 5 of those are former students, and that just makes my heart want to burst. But it is a great time of the year. AFT is busy. We just finished our national convention in Houston, Texas, and talk about inspiration. We had a lady there. Her name is B. Kaplan. She is proudly one of the members of what they call CTU number 1, the first union in AFT, the Chicago Teachers Union. Miss Kaplan is going to be honored soon. She is 106 years old. And if you would see and talk with Miss Kaplan, you cannot believe that she's 106 years old. She doesn't let anyone do anything for her. She carries a little cart on wheels behind her. I'm told that where she lives in Chicago, she walks 23 steps to her apartment several times a week. Very independent, very sharp thinking. I'm not sure I want to live to be 106, but I'm telling you, she is an inspiration. And I just hope that as we meet with these young teachers, we can be inspirations to them as they start a long career. I'm also proud to say that while some are banning books across our country, AFT continues to give free books to children. We have given over, as I've mentioned here before, over 10 million. And we continue on the path to our theme of literacy opens the world, and it does. One last thing, I was just offered a job as a math teacher back where I left. Don't think I'm going to take it, but it was nice to be offered that job. But this is so inspiring. What we had in the room with us today, these posters. I remember the posters that we had hanging in my classroom with the mathematical habits of mind, and they were printed off from some company. These are far better because these are created by the children, the students who are in our math classes. But these are products of public schools and our public school teachers. So I think it's a sterling example of what happens in our public schools. And I will always support our public schools and everything that happens there. I want to add to what Dr. Blackwell said. I worked for Kristen Oxley because I did teach math, and she was the math curriculum specialist. She is one of the best, if not the best ever. So thank you so much. Let's have a great year, and I hope things just keep on going in the right direction. Thank you so much.
And our final delegation is Dale Lee with WVEA, and his topic is excitement and fear.
Morning. Thank you. I'm Dale Lee, President of the West Virginia Education Association, Superintendent Blatt, President White, Vice President Gabriel, and all the members of the board. It is exciting. Beginning of the year, it's always exciting. I've been now out of the classroom for 17 years to serve as president of WVEA, and I still miss the first day. Up until about time for lunch duty, and then I don't miss it as bad. But what I see is the excitement of our educators, our teachers, our cooks, our bus drivers, our custodians, our aides, and the excitement of students coming in. I also see fear. The fear that last year we had 1,705 positions that didn't have a certified teacher in it. And that could increase even more this year. That's a concern. That's a fear. The fear is, as we reported earlier, about the number of suspensions that we have, and that we need to stop and figure this out at the elementary level. Because if you wait until they're in high school or middle school, you've lost them. We have to do a better job of figuring out how to reach these kids with their emotional and mental behaviors and discipline behaviors at the elementary level. I know there's a program that the State Department has and will give to each of the counties this year, but there's more we need to do. We have to make sure that we reach students where they are.
Our students face challenges that we never thought about 17 years ago when I left the classroom. We have the highest opioid addiction in the nation. We have the largest number of students that are raised by grandparents or other people besides their own parents. We have a ever-increasing homeless population. Folks, we have problems, and we have to sit down and figure out how to help these kids and help these educators to solve these problems. We're more than happy to come to the table and do that. I figure since I've been gone for the last 3 board meetings, I probably have about 15 minutes to speak, but I'll bank that time for a little later on after we get the second month report, that I know exactly how many positions that we don't have. And it's not just teachers. I like the numbers on the aides without aides in the classroom, and the number of bus driver vacancies that we have. And secondly, I'd also like the substitute numbers that we have, because I'm sure that we're going to have a substitute shortage again this year. That's my cue. It's now time to say goodbye. Thank you.
There are no other delegations.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Next on the agenda is the West Virginia Public Education Collaborative and the K-12 Speakers Bureau. And we have with us today Donna Peduto, the Executive Director. And Mr. Birch.
Couldn't get rid of me that easy. President White, Superintendent Blatt, board members, thank you so much for this opportunity for the Speakers Bureau to have an opportunity to share what they're working on. Donna had asked me if I would come up here because we're all about partnerships and how we work together. And she said, you know, Clinton, we're a partner in this, and our offices have been working very closely on this. So she said, would you please come up just for a moment, just to say a few words? And I do want to thank Donna and the crew from WVU. What they have been developing is this Speakers Bureau that's available free, costs no money to any public school to actually have guest speakers. So they now have this depository of all these guest speakers from around the state. They will come and do in-persons, they will do virtual, they will answer questions. Scott, I know you're a member of that. You've been doing a lot of work with us on this as well, so hats off to you. What you're going to learn about here today is more than a partnership. It's really an opportunity for students to learn more about what's available in the state of West Virginia. So many kids, as I've told you before, they want to stay here. They want to live. They want to raise their family here in West Virginia. They just don't realize some of the opportunities that are available. So those speakers that you're going to learn about today, that's what they're doing. They're sharing what those opportunities are, their experiences of being a former student in our K-12 system, what they went on and did in life, and what they're doing now to give back to the state. So I hope that all of you will really take this home with you, really think about it, and I encourage each of you to be a member of the Speakers Bureau so that kids can hear about each of your stories. So with that, I'll turn it over to Donna Peduto and the WVU crew.
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Good morning to President White, Vice President Gabriel, and all the board members, and certainly Superintendent Blatt. I'm so pleased to be here. This is just to give you, I can't give you a better background than Clinton did. He did a great job and has been so helpful to us. But just to tell you a little bit about how it started, we were all at a symposium at WVU, but Marshall and all the higher eds were there. And there was a speaker talking about how teachers need to do a better job and bring in real world learning to students and make them aware of careers, and, you know, that businesses aren't asked enough and that kind of thing. And finally, there was a teacher, and she was fourth grade. I could relate to that. For 22 years, a fourth grade teacher. She stood up and she said, I'd love to bring in some of those people, but I don't know who they are. She said, I know my relatives that are in careers, but I don't know who they are. And the speaker at the time, the facilitator, she said, I feel humiliated humiliated that I, went on and was not really thinking about teachers not having that opportunity. And she said, I think we need a speakers bureau. And that's how that all came about, just with the need there. So Scott Rotruck, my board chair, was nice enough to pass around a pamphlet, some pamphlets and a folder. And this presentation is in there. But this is really for teachers and their students. And if you look at the slide, the speakers that we have, they're from all walks of learning. And, they are really lifelong learners themselves, and they bring that out. And it's really interesting that the speakers that have been the most popular speakers have been the ones that started out in one career and maybe are on their second or third. And the students are always so interested in how that happened. I think that's important when we think about our students. I think the stats show they'll have 7 or 8 jobs by the time they're finished. And then the teachers, as we said, they know that the need is there and they want to bring it in. And this is just something that helps them do that. And the students are really interested in learning about careers. And I'm excited to say that we were able to get a grant from the Broadband Council just this week. We're part of a larger grant because they have all these openings in broadband, and the students aren't aware of what kind of jobs are in that industry. And so they wanted us to push that out so they know that the students are interested in these careers, but just need the opportunity to know. And so, as Clinton said, we have a database, and it's very well done, and it has all the different choices that the teachers can make, or the principal, whoever's organizing it. And you could do a pop-up event just in a classroom in the school, or you could do large group, and I'm going to tell you about our pilot where we did a lot of that. Or you could have a speaker series where, related to maybe one career, somebody comes in every month. And then we've also had a fireside chat and panel. So there's all different ways that the teachers can choose. And you can see on this map, we have 102 speakers that have volunteered their time free of charge to be located around the state. And we have a lot of openings. So we need more speakers in different parts of the area. And not that our speakers, they choose what counties they're willing to present in. And many of them will say the whole state. But we had one in particular that just got contacted for McDowell County, and they wanted him to come for the whole week. And so we have to limit it a little bit, but it's, you see we need them in the different areas. So that's where you all come in to help us a little bit. We're really fortunate to be working with the Department of Ed, and they've been so helpful, and everything's connected to their career clusters. And as you can see, and as you certainly know about, that they're comprehensive. And so teachers really feel good about bringing in a speaker because it is connected to what they're already doing, which is wonderful. On our website, we have all kinds of resources for speakers and teachers and students. There's sample presentations so they can see, what some of the speakers talk about, get an idea. And a lot of the speakers like to look at that before they come. There's PowerPoint slides for them to use, templates and that kind of thing. And then there's teacher tips, about how to prepare their students for the speakers coming in and what to do afterwards. And we always have the post-visit form with the evaluations too, a student reflection form. And that's really important too, to find out what resonated and what didn't. And one thing that happened as we were getting ready to roll out statewide, someone suggested we do a pilot. So we did a year-long pilot last year, South Middle in Mon County, and it was so valuable. And the person there that really led it was a school counselor. And we feel like that's the key, to have somebody lead it, and counselors are really in a position where they could be the ones. And she did a great job. And she always did like a pre-prep visit with the speakers, and the Department of Ed would be so proud because she always said, now you have to align with what they're doing in CTE. You have to align with the career clusters. And I think the speakers appreciated that too. So we did all year long, and you can see, and it's probably easier because you've got this PowerPoint in your program there, but you can see who some of our speakers were, and they were all, all walks of life. Sometimes like the Clear Mountain Bank, they came together. There were 4 of them, like a team, and we had Jennifer Schwartzweger, as you know her, state teacher of the year that they loved. We had a minister who never did talk about religion, but certainly had a powerful message. And then some of them were tech people. One that was really interesting was David Alloway, a former star basketball player who then went on to be in the fashion industry and lead Tommy Hilfiger. So they were really interested in that. So there, if you have time to look at the 102 speakers, there's really a lot of great ones there. So the key to success, first of all, as I talk about with Clinton all the time, we have to get the word out there. We've been doing this for a little while, so we feel like we all know about it and everybody else should, but they don't. So we have to get it out there. And then we need the schools that'll really commit to it, because there's a lot of pre-planning that goes into it. But of course, we're there to help. And now that we have the Broadband Council funding, we can hire somebody too to help us to do that, which is great. And as I said before, it's always helpful to have a point person or liaison, and the counselors have been really great. So we're hoping to tap into them a little more in the schools. And then certainly the administration, the principal, it's really important to have that buy-in. And South Middle, you can see the feedback. Did they learn at least one new thing? And in 7th grade, overwhelming 82%, and 8th grade even more so. So they really, got along well. And there's some really challenging students at South Middle. They wouldn't mind me saying that. And they were so mannerly and so engaged, as students always are when they are engaged. So it was really great to have that. We've had a lot of media coverage. You can see right there we have Junius Lewis that was on there, 7-foot former basketball player that really wowed them, and just everybody has been great at that in that pilot. And we have some new promotional materials that we're excited about that actually were Clinton Birch's idea. We have a business card. You've got a card in your packet, but this is going to be a little one with a QR code that we can give to you all, for instance, and you can, use it to share. And then we have just a Speakers Bureau card that's a magnet. So we think that bling is going to be fun to do that. So you can connect this way. We're on Twitter, we're on X, whatever it is, Facebook, we're on there. But I did want to tell you about some exciting partnerships that just were established. I know you're familiar with the magazine West Virginia Living, Nikki Bowman Mills, and every year she brings in maybe like 40 Wonder Women. And I see a lot of Wonder Women in this audience, and up here I've seen your pictures. And she's always been disturbed because after their reign is over for the year, then there's nothing that happens. They just don't do anything, and they want to. So she's going to do a push this year. She's getting ready to name the new ones, where she's asking all of them to sign up for the Speakers Bureau, and we'll push it out that way. And that'll be a wonderful thing. And then she's also making a second ask out of them to find one student next school year to mentor, which I think is important too. So that's great. And then Elise Smith, that we all know, First Lady of Marshall, she kind of heard about what we were doing, and she has the conference, the symposium, the Women Warriors. So she said, we don't name any of them the Women Warriors, but that's the name of the conference. And she said, I would be willing to, and she also has her conference coming up in October, ask all of them to sign up for the Speakers Bureau. And then they talked about, two of them got together, talked about how Libera, which I know you've heard from them, they work with young girls, that maybe we could work with them too to further mentor. So that's an exciting partnership for sure. And then one partnership that I'm looking forward to working on more is with Amelia Courts and the Education Alliance. And they do such great work overall, but with internship, apprenticeship. So we're working towards the best way to make that happen. So I'm really looking forward to that. So I'd love to hear if you have any advice for us or any questions. Love to hear.
Any comments, questions? Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you so much for being with us today. It's always great to hear the connections that are being made between the students and the rest of the world, because they need to recognize what's out there, and so often they don't. And you know that. And I'm glad to hear that you're working with other entities to partner in your Speakers Bureau, because it seems like we in West Virginia are always reinventing the wheel, and you already have a good core going. I think you're working some with communities and schools. Is that correct?
Superintendent Blatt is kind of owning that relationship and trying to make that work. But
Good. And how about the program through the Chamber of Commerce, jobs for West Virginia graduates?
Oh,
that would be a really good connection also for you to look into. I just heard a presentation yesterday about what they're doing in the schools with our young people, and it would fit right in with your efforts. So
excellent.
And that's Elizabeth House.
Olivia's house.
Elizabeth House.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chamber. But thank you for your good work.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to hearing more about it.
It's great, and thanks for the suggestion.
Mr. Roadtruck, were you a guest speaker? Tell us a little bit about your experience.
I have not been a guest speaker yet, but I am signed up. I have had the privilege of working with the pilot. It's been so well done just to make certain that everything would work so smoothly. We want to make sure we do everything right in the schools. Dawn and her team have just done a fabulous job with the department. And as Ms. Sullivan just said, we need not reinvent the wheel, but we need to make sure everybody's collaborating together. And that's happening. It's fabulous. But as somebody still in the business sector, we really need to get out there and tell these kids about what's ahead of them. It's so positive. A lot of them don't have a chance to hear. We have to support our counselors in the school. And what Donna mentioned about the criticality of having someone be the champion locally, that's really the sine qua non of this being successful. Lauren Smith has just done a fabulous job in Mon County. I'll get to speak eventually. I'm shy.
I need to know when that's going to happen, so I could be in the audience.
I'll invite everybody. It would be wonderful, as we know he's a prolific speaker. Thank you.
How does one come to be on the roster?
Okay, great. You can use that QR code and get right on it, or on this PowerPoint at the end is our website, and you sign right up there. Would really love all of you to sign up.
Definitely be interested.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you
very much. Wait a minute.
It's me. Sorry, I'm being problematic today. Donna, I love this so much.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I love this so much. And so I have 19 public college presidents that I'm volunteering to be speakers.
Oh.
You can tell them all that I said it. I will happily call them each and have them be speakers. This is a great idea. We know that first generation college goers go to college because one person made a difference in their lives and reached out to them and told them about something and about what their future could be. And the idea that you have West Virginians talking to other West Virginians about how to have a successful career and what that could look like will encourage so many other great behaviors that I'm all in. I love it. And I will make sure that all of our Gear Up schools and our Gear Up counties incorporate this into their work, because we're always looking for people to come into those high schools and really inspire students. I love it.
Thank you so much. I'm floating on air. Thank you.
I think there's probably a lot of volunteers in this room, aren't there? Thank you again. Next on our agenda is school safety information. Mr. Adkins.
Good morning, President White, Vice President Gabriel, Superintendent Blatt, and members of the board. Our school safety unit from the Division of Homeland Security have begun conducting preparedness drills in each of our regions. They started in Logan. It's the only one that they have completed so far. But what they're doing is they are actually using our deployment system to send out a real threat. It's a test, obviously, but treating it as if it were a real threat to see response times from law enforcement, from EMS services, and whomever else may need to be involved, so that they can continually refine that process to to make sure that if there is an emergency situation in one of our schools, that we do have the fastest response time. As you know, many of our schools are located in rural areas, and law enforcement presence is not always close, but we're working to, again, just increase that response time, making sure that we keep officers close. Many schools, many counties are, just continually seeking to employ armed security or PROs and SROs in their schools. They're finding creative ways to do that. So that is very positive, I believe. The more presence that we can get from law enforcement officials in our schools, especially in rural areas, the better I know that I will feel each day that students are in our buildings. Continuing to provide trainings. I'll actually be traveling to a county tomorrow to provide trainings. Principals and superintendents are reaching out for assistance, for contacts regarding trainings, which is, again, another positive in my eyes, because I believe we are making greater efforts to make sure that our staffs are prepared and trained appropriately as it relates to safety matters. Superintendents have been very responsive to needs and requests from their teachers and from their schools when they send out an email. I've a lot of times I've been copied on those, and superintendents are really doing a good job at getting back and making sure that those needs are met. If there's things that need purchased, they're making sure that those things are purchased in a timely manner. So I believe a lot of positive direction for school safety. And again, I appreciate the board's attention to school safety and your concern for that, and your just continually making sure that it's at the top of everyone's priority list. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Atkins?
I have a quick one. Thank you. Thank you for the work that's being done in this very important venue. I've been hearing about schools that are installing face recognition software as students come in, and others. Is that widespread in our state? Is it expensive? What are the pros and cons of it?
There are a few counties so far that have purchased. The main vendor that I think that everyone has been using is Rank One Computing. They do have a facial recognition software, and I believe they are making this very, very affordable to West Virginia districts. And from the information that I've received, I did go to a county, Marion County, to kind of observe it being used. And it really is impressive, because what they can do is they can keep all of their students' metrics, their staff, so that when someone approaches the door, it automatically recognizes, okay, this person is supposed to be here. If it's someone that they do not recognize, then principals, secretaries, they get an alert to let them know that it's someone that is not in the database. Again, so as far as someone approaching the building that shouldn't be there, that maybe has the intention of doing harm, you do kind of get a head start alert on that, if you will. So that's one of the biggest benefits I see to that.
Okay, where is this database stored? Is it at the school or county level?
It's at the school level.
So it is not shared with any larger databases, state or national. It is
at the school level.
The school. Thank you. That's I think important. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Stansberg.
Thank you for being here, Jenna. I know we've talked a couple times about resource officers and whether we would ever have the capacity, the ability to put one in every school in West Virginia. you guys made any headway as far as, looking into costs and what it would take in manpower and money and everything to be able to implement that?
Yes, we've looked at that a couple of different times. The last estimate that we had, we're looking roughly just over $30 million for cost. I think the biggest, the conversations that I've had with folks at Homeland Security and around, the biggest concern is the manpower piece of that, finding the appropriate, not just going to say a law enforcement officer, but the appropriate law enforcement officer to serve in that capacity. Because I think everyone's in agreement, that everyone that I've talked to, that it does take a special person to fill that role, someone that can build positive relationships with students at the same time as they are protecting the school. I know I've spoken to a couple of sheriffs. They've been able to reach out to me and just ask, what help that we had available. Funding obviously would, be, I believe that's the biggest and the first hurdle that we need to jump to get funding to either sheriff's departments or county boards of education.
Any opportunity for public-private partnerships where we could work with businesses to help try to fund that in schools, or any other opportunities we haven't looked at that, may be able to open up new sources of funding for that?
I would absolutely love that opportunity, to be able to sit down, to get the appropriate folks together to sit down and begin that discussion. I believe that would be a fantastic idea.
Okay. Any discussion with the governor's office or the legislature about appropriations for funding such a program?
I believe that we have done that. I see Superintendent Blatt nodding her head.
Okay.
We do send each year. We send a request based on a needs survey that we send out from our facilities office. So each year we do take that request to LOSIA. Is that correct? Present that number to them.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jenna.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the county technical assistance updates. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Morning, President White, Vice President Gabriel, members of the board, Chancellor Tucker, Superintendent Blatt. We're now to 191 liaison submissions from our various offices in the department. Areas most impacted continue to be personnel, child nutrition, and finance. 67, almost 68% actually of those interventions have been proactive, so we remain strong on that front. Our main areas, our main types of interventions continue to be technical assistance, professional development, and then of course county and school visits, which still make up 15% of those interventions. Highlights from the most recent submissions: Dr. Close, during the week of July 15th, PK-12 academic support, provided professional learning to educators at the Student Success Summit in Charleston, and then turned around a week later and worked with the Office of Student Enrichment, hosted over 850 educators at Invest in Morgantown. Busy month for them. Also, our Office of Accountability, Ms. Varney, has completed new LSIC resources and guidance materials for counties. She's worked with graphics in Ms. Day's office to make those items available on our website. She's also worked with superintendents to provide forms for the LSIC documentation to be submitted by the deadline of September 1, which is quickly approaching. Our Office of Finance has rolled out its new, its new CSBO mentorship program, which I think we all know is very needed. And those meetings are taking place this month. Mr. Whitlow, who I was sitting in the back with, has been working and providing technical assistance with multiple counties on school planning in anticipation of SBA funding requests and proposed school configuration changes. And I want to take a little additional time to highlight our Office of School Improvement, who's been working closely with Berkeley County Schools subsequent to the recent state of emergency, and very pleased with what we're seeing up there. Kelly Massinopol has been leading that work. She's done a fantastic job and is working smoothly with the folks up there. They have secured a new principal for North. They've also secured a school improvement specialist who will begin working with the administrative and school improvement teams Also, the master schedule was rebuilt to prioritize instructional time. Also to ensure daily intervention for all students, and includes collaboration time for teachers. At the end of July, the administrative and school improvement teams at the school engaged in priority setting workshops to analyze targeted assessments and our corrective action plan for the county. This included new practices and procedures for behavior, which we knew was an issue up there, which will be communicated with staff and students at the beginning of the school year. Also, the administrative team will outline and provide professional learning for all teachers in the use of WEVIS for documenting behaviors and interventions and addressing and looking at key data that they will use to provide support to repeat offenders. And lastly, the school improvement coordinator will be working with Ms. Hayes from the Office of Safety and Multi-Tiered Support Systems here at the department to work with counselors on the comprehensive school counseling plan. So a lot of positive movement on that front that I thought we should make you aware of. That concludes my report for this month. President White, questions?
Any questions? Sullivan.
Thank you. And especially thank you for the update on the Berkeley County School. Just a quick question. Students often are the ones who have ideas about ways to fix their schools. How are students being involved up there to reshape what's going on?
Well, I can't speak to that specifically at this point. I am planning a trip up there. If Ms. Mastopol's in the room, she probably could. Of course, they're out of school at this juncture. Right. I do get the feeling that is going to be part of the process. I would guess that the next time I report out, I could probably bring you back some more detailed information on that front. I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Kind of a segue from her question. How confident are you in security of the systems that support education in West Virginia, both on a state level and then on the individual county level? Because I guess I watched a 60-minute piece over the weekend and talking about how these hackers are generally under 25 years old, down to as young as 13. So I'm assuming we've got some very smart kids in our school systems that maybe they want to be valedictorian or something, so they know how to go in and fix the system. How are we protecting ourselves?
I'm probably not the expert in the department to speak to that, but I can tell you from experience, those are real world or real life things that happen. As a principal and as a superintendent, and I saw episodes of that or had colleagues who saw episodes of that. So it is something that we have to take serious. I like to think that we're pretty well protected, but at the same time, nothing is always safe on that front. We got to continue to work to be stronger on that front. And I don't know if that's something that Mr. Atkins' office could speak to in the future, but it would probably be a good idea, I think, to maybe bring someone in from the department who handles that.
Yeah, I was going to say we could have our technology office, of course, Mr. Cartwright's in that office, and our assistant superintendent, Tim Conzat, talk about the firewalls and all the different programs that we have in place statewide.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
I mean, we've all experienced being hacked, whether it be a hospital, car dealerships, you kind of name it. They'll go out and target specific sectors, and who knows? I mean, I can't imagine we have information that is so so secretive in a way that would prevent us from carrying on our day-to-day work, but a lot of vital statistics that you wouldn't want to be broadcast, to the world. So if we could, maybe at the next meeting or soon thereafter, follow up on it.
You can do that.
Any other questions for Mr. Kelly?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda? Been moved by Dr. Stansberry, second by Mr. Gabriel. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries. New business. Item A, I do have one correction to make on the annual appointments. If you would take note that Mr. Hardesty, due to a conflict, will not be able to serve on the County Board Member Training Standards Review Committee, and I will be taking his place. So with that, do I hear a motion to approve these annual appointments? I guess I should read them all. A motion is requested to appoint Nancy White to the County Board Member Training Standards Review Committee, appoint Deborah Sullivan to the Educational Broadcasting Authority, reappoint Mr. Dunleavy to the Secondary Schools Activities Commission, and elect Victor Gabriel to the School Building Authority of West Virginia, effective September 4th, 2024. Been moved by Mr. Wooten.
Second.
Second by Dr. Snavely. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item B is the West Virginia Board of Education and West Virginia Department of Education personnel matters. It's recommended and a motion is requested to approve the West Virginia Board of Education personnel matters found in the attachment. Do you have a motion?
I would ask that we go into executive session.
You want to
quickly.
make that motion?
I move that we go into executive session.
Do I hear a second? Yes.
West Virginia Board of Education personnel and or legal matters may involve an executive session as provided in West Virginia Code 69A4B and or 69A4 matters involving attorney-client privilege, Peters versus County Commission, 5 West Virginia 31.
It's been moved that we enter into executive session. Do I hear a second? I guess we did just there. Sorry. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. We will enter into executive session at 11:08.
Mr. Hardesty, I will call you from the executive session room.
back from executive session at 11:33. Do I hear a motion to approve the West Virginia Board of Education personnel matters found in the attachment?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gabriel.
Second.
Second by Dr. Stansberry. Any questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
I abstain.
Motion carries. It is recommended, motion is requested to approve the West Virginia Department of Education personnel matters found in the attachment. Do I hear a motion? Been moved by Mr. Devon-Levy, second by Mr. Gabriel. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the department reports. President Blatt.
Yes, we have Dr. Vaughn Rudy here with us to present to us our accountability assessment results for this past school year.
Thank you and good morning. President White, Vice President Gabriel, Chancellor Tucker, members of the board, and Superintendent Blatt. I'm Vaughn Rudy, the Director of Assessment, and I'm here today to present to you the 2024 statewide summative assessment results. I believe you received a copy of the document that I'm going to show you that you can see up on the screen, as well as an additional spreadsheet. And as I'm speaking to you today, our Office of Data Analysis and Research is opening up the public site for Zoom WV. So all of the results will be there, statewide results, as well as county and school results. Those will be available as well. So what I'm going to present to you today are the statewide accountability results, as well as the breakdown for the state by the content and the grade level. The first page that's in the document, of course, we have a cover sheet here where we have a nice smiling person who you can tell is loving taking the assessment. But also then on the second page, we have some information of what we mean by the statewide accountability results, as well as some important points to consider. The accountability results consist of the combined student performance across all the state's summative assessments, and that includes the West Virginia General Summative Assessment in grades 3 through 8, the SAT School Day in grade 11, and the West Virginia Alternate Summative Assessment in grades 3 through 8 and 11. And it's the students who have the most significant cognitive disabilities that take the alternate assessment. The results are based on the performance of the students who were enrolled for a full academic year, meaning that they were enrolled for at least 135 days during the school year, and then they were also present in the end-of-year enrollment file. Now, on this page, we have listed some of the some important points to remember about this past year's administration of the assessment. First, we're very pleased that our participation for the state was more than the 95% that's required by the federal government, and that was across the board in all grade levels and all content areas for the state. Now, there may have been some variation in participation rate by the counties, depending on what their circumstances were, but for the state, we were above the 95%, and we were very pleased to be able to report that. One change to note about the SAT School Day: in the spring of 2024, we moved from a fixed form paper pencil administration of the SAT School Day in grade 11 to a new staged adaptive digital SAT School Day. So it was administered to the students on computers this year, and that was a change College Board made across the country, not only for the SAT, but also for its earlier tests, the PSAT, NMSQT, and so forth. The move to a staged adaptive test and to a digital administration did allow for a reduction in testing time, and it moved from students requiring about 4 hours to complete the test down to about a little bit more than 2 hours. So that was a very positive move. We had a lot of positive feedback from the field, from our teachers that were administering the test. We did a lot of training throughout the year last year to get everybody ready for it, and we were very pleased with the way the administration went. We also heard from the students that they liked the digital administration as well, rather than the paper pencil version. So as I move into the results and showing you the results, I want to point out that we're showing you the results for 22, 23, and 24 for just the past 3 years so that we can see how we've progressed since 2022. So first, let's take a look at the overall percent proficient for the state. And this looks at the percent proficient across all of the grade levels in each of our content areas. The key point here is that we did see a 1 percentage point increase in the overall percent proficient for ELA and math over last year. Science stayed the same, but we didn't see a drop. So that's good news. Next, we're going to look at the English language arts percent proficient. We saw increases at every grade for English language arts, except for grade 6, which remained steady at 45%. And then we did see a 2 percentage drop in grade 8 from 43 to 41%. One thing that I want to point out, though, that I want you to take note of is that in grade 3, we saw a 6 percentage point increase in the performance in the percent proficient in ELA over last year. And although it's not on this, one of the things we went to look at too was, we have those 4 achievement levels. We have the exceed standards, meet standards, and that's what makes proficiency. And then we have partially meets, and then we have does not meet. And we were able to reduce in grade 3 in English language arts, reduce that bottom one that does not meet by about 7%. So we removed that. Those students are moving up, and I think that maybe we're hopefully seeing some signs with regard to the Third Grade Success Act and the Science of Reading and the Ready, Read, Write initiative. So it's going to be interesting over the years if we can continue to see that increase as the students start to move up. So we're very pleased about that. In math, let's go to look at math. We saw a 1 percentage point increase all over the last year in grades 3, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We saw a 2 percentage point increase in grade 4, and then we saw a 3 percentage point drop in grade 11 from 21% last year to 18%. We think that a lot of that contributed to where there was a shift in the administration mode. And so we kind of look at this as starting for grade 11 with the SAT school day, of starting a new baseline. And we're going to start looking at that and then kind of keep track of that as we go on. Because sometimes you make a shift, you do see some changes in the performance when students are experiencing tests in a new format, in a new way. And that was just probably, there may be other factors as well, but that was one thing that we're kind of thinking. In science, we had a 1 percentage point increase in grade 5, a 1 percentage point drop in grade 8, and then grade 11 stayed the same. And then the back of the document that we have provided, this was the science, I'm sorry to put that slide up. In the back of the document, we have some frequently asked questions that we include so folks can take a look at those if they need that. So at that point, I'll pause and see if there are, Superintendent Blatt, if you want to make any comments, and then we'll see if there's any questions.
Thank you. I think you've made most of my comments. I just wanted to, say that it looks like the direction that we're moving with reading and the Third Grade Success Act and those supports is making an impact. And this year, of course, the third grade class did not have the additional age yet, but they were provided the benchmarks required, and then all of the interventions had to be in place this year. So we're very optimistic that if we continue that trajectory and we stay the course on what we're currently doing, kind of with this back to the basics with our reading and math, that we'll be able to continue to see those gains. The other thing of course, math, especially as you progress through the grade levels, is not where any of us would like for it to be. I'm glad that we had the presentations today. That's just a little kind of a little piece of the work that started this past year with Tim Flatley and the mathematical habits of minds and the training that he's doing. The standards were just recently revised for math that have been adopted by this board. And then this was the curriculum adoption year. So all of our counties are starting out this fall with their new curriculum and things for math. And so that will be a large focus this year. I think the thing to keep in mind and that we have to be careful about is we want to make sure that as we continue to focus on the math, that we continue to focus on the reading as well, because it seems like you put focus on one thing and it goes up and then something else goes down, and just maintaining that balance, and especially messaging when we talk to and share this information with our legislature and others, that we truly do need to stay the course based on what we're seeing there in that third grade data, especially around ELA, so that we can continue to keep things consistent and the counties can continue to operate without a lot of changes.
Any other questions? Dr. Stansberry.
Thank you for your presentation. I guess one of my concerns is around the math scores and the proficiency ratings in a lot of our high schools in West Virginia are in the single digits. Obviously, that's very concerning, and I'm curious what the department does when they see a school struggling like that with math. Are we taking a look at who we have in those teaching positions? Are we taking a look at, what's going on with curriculum? Where do the real problems lie, and what can we do as a department and as a board to help those schools who are struggling so much to better prepare these kids for math?
Yeah, so our office takes care of administering the test, so I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer what some of the things we do. And we know we have the Unite with Numeracy initiative that's coming. We know we have a lot of work. So I'll let Superintendent Blatt, she might be able to address that better than I.
One of the things we've already started doing, and Dr. White and Mr. Kelly both like our spreadsheet gurus and like to dig into the data, is we will work with, kind of what we call our system of support through our school improvement office and others to start identifying where the strengths and the weaknesses are across the state. And then what supports can we put in place, especially for the high school. Chancellor Tucker and I talked about it this morning. What are some things we can do for those high schools? We also look at county level. And so we're looking at, what are the top 10, what are the bottom 10 of those counties in reading and in math, and then what supports will we focus from the department? What counties and or schools will we focus on from our accountability and our school improvement and leadership office as we start this year to provide those supports?
What can be done for the kids that are in their final years in high school? I mean, obviously these kids are really struggling. They're going to enter the workforce, or they're going to, perhaps go on to additional education. I mean, what do we have in place? Any sort of tutoring or any sort of, catch up curriculum that can be performed for these kids who are struggling and behind?
Yeah. Our counties have a lot of different, if they need credit recovery, they have a lot of programs for that. They have a lot of, other resources. Every county kind of chooses their own once, adopts their own curriculum. But one thing also, and we can share this information maybe at our next meeting, is to start looking at some of our individual students and our students that are also part of our CTE pathways, because a lot of times we'll see that when they take the NOCTI test, their assessments and they're more workforce ready. And some of these students that have taken this college and career entrance exam, which is what the SAT is it something that they're planning to pursue, and they don't take it as serious. But we definitely need to do a deep dive into our math instruction. I mean, really starting at the middle school level and transitioning up to see what are the additional supports we can provide. What the other thing we like to look at is looking at those counties that have been successful in math. What's the demographics of those counties? And looking to see what are they doing that has been successful with those students, and what things can we replicate into these counties and schools that are not having success.
Thank you for that. I guess it really just stresses the importance of the numeracy program, how important it is for us to implement that and implement it well, and how critical that is to the education of these young people. I just worry for the future of the kids that are struggling now and are not going to benefit from that initiative. So thank you.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you. That was well stated. And you know how I like data, so I won't apologize, but I just say that with that background in mind. Which students are actually included in these results? Is it all public school students who are in the building or virtually, or who is this?
Yes, ma'am. This is all public school students. That includes the students that are in the building. That includes the students that are in our charter schools, because they also are public schools, and in our virtual charter schools as well. All of that, this includes all of them.
Okay, and I'll be fuzzy on this, but virtual students who are in virtual charter schools are allowed to take the test at home now. Did that start this year?
That started this year for the 3 through 8 assessment and only
Right.
for the general summative assessment, not for the alternate assessment and not for high school students with the SAT school day.
So the students in 3 through 8 who are in virtual charter schools stayed at home and took the test.
Yes, and they were proctored. We did training with the we have 2 virtual charter schools that this was permitted for. We worked with them very closely. We did a lot of training with them. We had a lot of documentation and things that they had to use, like they had to get permission from the parents, and they had to have all that signed before we allowed them to do that. And then all of their folks were trained. We trained the county folks, and then we also did some training with the people who were going to be serving as test examiners. But the schools themselves did a lot of that training, but we provide a lot of documentation and support for them. And so, yes, this was the first year that we did that. We had, I think, somewhere around 800 kids that actually took that. They still had some kids that did not do that. They had to test them in person. It was a very small number. But overall, we think that it went very well. We were a little concerned about it, but we worked very hard with them to try to make sure. And I even actually had the opportunity to go online and monitor some of those and to monitor how they were administering it. And so we feel like we're going to continue to look to see how we can make improvements, but we think it went very well.
Well, I know that you were very involved in setting up all the safeguards, and I know all of us appreciate that. Now, homeschool students who choose to take, I know they don't have to take the test.
That's correct.
But those who choose to take the test, are they included in these results?
No, these are not. This does not include homeschool students, only the public school students.
Do you have, though, homeschool data?
We do have homeschool data. We haven't dug into that.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of, a large number of those students, but we do have that data, yes.
You don't have a large number who are choosing to take the test. Do we know how many homeschool students
I'd have to get the specific number, but I believe it's somewhere around 500 or so across the grade.
Who took the test, as opposed to the, I don't know.
Let me say this. I think there was about 500 that maybe signed up, because sometimes they'll sign up and say they want to take it, and then they don't come to take it. And, but I can get those specific numbers for you and find out exactly how.
It would be just interesting to know how many are doing that. And you mentioned, and Superintendent Blatt also mentioned the SAT. The change from the 4-hour test to a 2-hour test. And I'm sure you remember some years ago where they changed the scale, and somebody who had a 500 under the old SAT now had a 600 under the new. So what has the College Board done to ensure that the 4-hour test results are equating to the 2-hour test?
They've done a lot of psychometric calculations, a lot of research studies. They've done equating analysis, all of the traditional things. I'm not a psychometrician, so I can't get in all the details of those, but I know that we've worked very closely, because there are many other states. And by the way, the drop that we saw in math there was not unique to West Virginia. It occurred in many of the other states. In some cases, I think that their drop was even greater. But we work very closely with other states that are also administering the SAT as their accountability assessment. And we had lots of meetings with College Board as we move forward with this. And they provided us with all of the information of how they did all the studies and so forth to make sure it was comparable. They did not change the scale. It's still the same. And they did not change their benchmarks. So those things still remain the same.
And I know that the U.S. Department of Ed and Superintendent Blatt also mentioned this, that they require that we give tests to various levels. And West Virginia has chosen the SAT to be the 11th grade test. There are other states, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there are other states who do not use the SAT or the ACT because they are college predictive tests. They're using other tests, aren't they?
No, we're all required to use a college entrance exam, correct?
No, not across.
With the new
In West Virginia,
Yeah, right.
In West Virginia, we are required, yes, by state law,
It was state law.
by state law to administer a college entrance exam. Many other states also do that, but there are some states that have their own high school tests that they create that they administer.
And some use the ASVAB.
I'm not sure if anybody uses the ASVAB to meet that federal requirement because I don't believe that that's ever gone through federal peer review to meet that qualification.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is because we have only 46% or so of our graduates going on to higher ed, and yet we're giving them a test that will not affect the rest of them and Superintendent Blatt. And I do think that depresses the scores. It doesn't mean anything to them. So hopefully there will be an opportunity in the future to look at that. The 100, and again, I know this is the U.S. Department of Ed with the 135-day, I assume it is, full-time enrollment. Are they?
I'm not. I don't. That doesn't come out of our office. So I'm not sure if Melanie, the 130, is that set by the state or the federal, the 135-day for full academic year? It's defined, yeah.
Okay, so a student who's in a school for 75% of the days, that would be 135 days, is included in this in a county or in a school's metrics, correct?
If they're
at the end of the year.
If they're in the end of year enrollment and they've been, yes. And so basically what that means is that if a student is enrolled in a particular school for 175 days and then they transfer, 135 days, and then they transfer to another school, they take the test at the other school, but then they are in the state's end of year enrollment file. They're held accountable at the school that they attended for 135 days where they received the majority of their instruction.
So a student who moves into the state from anywhere and is in a school, one of our schools, for 135 days, which is 75% of the time, they are included in these results.
As long as they're in the end of year enrollment file, yes.
You wonder how fair that is to the school, to the county, that they've not had the opportunity to educate a child for 100%. So I know that there's so many different ways that you're going to be looking at all this data, but I would ask if it would be, if you'd be able to pull out the students who are chronically absent and their scores and not have them be held at the same level of authenticity, I guess, as students who are in school every day. Because I think we showed, and when we looked at it before, it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And so I wish that we could report out what our students who are faithful in their attendance at school, how they're doing. So it's just a suggestion. But thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, sir. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I've got just a couple basic questions. How are these averages determined? The ones bar charts.
How are the percent proficients determined? Mm-hmm. It's basically, it's just you take all of the students that are accountable, the 135 days, their end of the year enrollment file. You take you get the total number of students that are tested, and you find out how many of those students fall into that meets or exceeds achievement level, that they're above the proficiency cut, and then that counts for their percentage.
So is it an average of all the students in the entire state, or is this an average of 55 counties?
This is all the students this is for the state level. It's all of the students in the state.
Okay, that's my first question. Okay, somebody mentioned the national average for these. It might be helpful if we had a line or something to trail these bar charts to show where the national average trends.
Well, the only thing because our test, our general summative assessment is unique to West Virginia. Not all states take the West Virginia. They have their own test. And some of those states will set their own cuts and their own, so it's difficult to do that with our test because it's not a national test. The SAT, we can get a little bit of an idea because it is tested in other states. But our general summative assessment test in grades 3 through 8 and our alternate, there are some other states that do our alternate tests, but we can't really get that kind of a line because it's not all the kids across the nation are taking that test, the same test.
So there is no national norm that we can compare this to?
No, not for the 3 through 8.
Are we in a vacuum then? I mean,
well, all state, that's the way it's been. Most states, unless they're in some type of a consortium or something that where they're given the same test across the states, most states do their own test. They develop their own test. They work with their own vendors. And that's just, that's the way that it is.
Okay. And then if you look at these trends, and I'm looking mostly at the math side of this, and I know you're basically presenting data. You're not saying, hey, here's what we ought to do. But, I mean, the trend is not good, right? And so, number one, what are we doing generally to try to reverse this trend? Because it is not good. And number two is why are we, I know why we're giving tests in the 11th grade, college entrance exams, but to Dr. Stansberry's point, I mean, by the time you get the results for the 11th grade, kids in the 12th grade, and you don't have much time to react to change the course. And so that's a kind of a fait accompli, right? So what happens in 9 and 10? Or just don't have the funding? We just don't do a test? What happens?
So federal law requires us to test grades 3 through 8 and 11. And then there's been a lot of legislation over the past several years about the testing that we're allowed to require from the state level. So in previous years, several years, we had a 9 and 10 test that we administered. That ability was taken away from state code. Now, a lot of our counties, I won't say most of them, a lot of our counties use the PSAT, which is the kind of like the precursor for the SAT. They will use that in 9th and 10th grade. And then that way they're able to use the Khan Academy and other resources to remediate things that happen with the 9th and 10th graders leading up to this 11th grade assessment. And one of the things that Dr. White and I have talked about, is doing some comparison between counties that use the PSAT and those that don't, and what the 11th grade scores look like. And then also looking at the counties that use our statewide benchmarks that we have through our GSA system compared to those counties that don't, to see the input, the value of those assessments. But there is not an ability to require from the state level at this time a 9th and 10th grade assessment. It's a county decision, and then also the counties have to fund that because we're not provided funding for that.
So what's the solution? Is there not a solution? Is it just a matter of funding?
It's a matter of the counties have to decide whether they want to test their 9th and 10th graders, and if they're going to move forward with that. But we're not allowed to require that from the state level.
State law that was passed in 2017 basically stated that we were only to test in the grades that's required by the federal government for accountability purposes. That's one of the reasons why we test science in 5, 8, and once in high school, because we used to test back, I think 2014 was, 2015, 16, there was a time period in there where we tested ELA, math, science, and social studies in all grades 3 through 11. And then when they started passing the state laws and so forth, we were forced to do that. Now, that doesn't mean, like you said, the counties can purchase things and administer, and many of them do. And I think more of them are starting to pick up on that and to purchase those and administer the PSAT in 9 and 10, and sometimes even they also administer it in 11 too. So,
well, again, count me as somebody that loves data, but I also like to use data to try to figure out, what the problem is and what the solutions are. And somebody mentioned some single digits. I'm looking at one county here where you had 2 feeder schools that had, and this is in math, 70%. Wow, that's pretty good. That's a third grader. The other feeder school was 50%. And if I'm looking at this in a vacuum, by the time that cohort got to the 11th grade, 2.7% of them were proficient. And if I'm reading the data right, that 2.7% was based on 77 students. So that's not even two students that are proficient in math in that high school. That's incredible. And again, if you look at it in a vacuum, this same cohort started out at maybe a midpoint of 70 or 75%. It's train wrecking in a critical way that should be easy to determine when things go off the rail that quickly. So whether we have a test or not, you've got some raw data here that to me suggests that it's a crisis of leadership, and let's not let this cohort that's 70 or 80% end up being 2 or 3% in a few years.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Just real quickly, in grades 3 through 8, what is the name of the test that is given?
We call it the West Virginia General Summative Assessment. That's for our general education, not the students with the most significant disabilities. They take the alternate summative assessment, but we call it the West Virginia General Summative Assessment.
And who developed that test?
We worked with, there was legislation passed in 2017, we had to put out an RFP. We work with our vendors, our state. We have teachers that come in that are involved in this process. And we work every year. Like we just finished, every summer we do basically 3 workshops with teachers that we bring in from throughout the state. We do an item writing workshop where they're writing new items that will go eventually on the test. We do a comparability study for our writing assessment, and then we also do a content review where we have a different set of teachers that come in that's different from the item writers to review the items that they wrote for content, for bias, sensitivity, make sure that they're appropriate for the test. And then at some point, those items then go into field test slots on our test. So we basically are developing the test. We do use items from our vendor, from their bank, to help to build that test to make sure that we are being aligned to our standards.
Yeah. Very well stated. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that, that everybody could hear the amount of effort that's going in to make sure that the 3 through 8 test is matching our standards. And to go back to Mr. Wooten's concerns and mine too, the SAT may or may not be on the same level of integrity with our standards. That coupled with the fact that the SAT is not going to make any difference in a lot of students' lives, so they just don't take it. They don't take it seriously. So we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I think one other point that we haven't mentioned, Mr. Lee mentioned earlier in his delegation about our lack of certified teachers, and we have been working for several years with various partners across the state and with SREV to get more certified math teachers, but we still only have about 50% of our math teachers certified in West Virginia.
And it is at those early grades where the fundamentals are developed, especially with math, and then they build on that. And yes, when it's high school, failing math is something was lost along the way.
just one final comment. If we were looking at these stats for an athletic program in any particular county, we'd be talking about firing a coach. We'd be talking about recruiting better athletes. We'd be talking about all kind of stuff. But let's think about this differently. And I'm encouraged. I don't know how Kanawha County did it. 100 new teachers. Did I hear that right? That's terrific. So let's figure out what they're doing.
Any other comments, questions, Mr. Rudy? Thank you very much.
The only other report I have is kind of a reminder as well. We talked about, as we're talking about our network that we're creating across the state to make sure all of our supports are in place for our teachers and students, and really to start tackling the discipline issues that we're facing, at the elementary level. We have a 3-year contract with the Cook Center for Human Connection. Part of that is called parentguidance.org. And parentguidance.org allows for online, on-demand courses that any of our teachers or parents across the state can access. But the real key thing is every parent, teacher, and staff member in our state can access one-on-one counseling on a biweekly basis. And it's directed to the questions that parent has, the issues that they're facing with their individual children, or with our teachers. It's directed on what's happening in their classrooms and how can they provide better support for that. And so we're really trying to get the message out. We've shared this at Invest and several of our other conferences. I've spoken with our school board association. I spoke at our school-based health conference this summer to make sure that everyone's aware of this so that we can get people signed up and really taking advantage of this resource that we have available now for everyone in the state to help with some of our mental health and behavior issues. And so I've asked Mimi Browning, who's kind of become our cheerleader for this parentguidance.org, just to share briefly her experience with this program. Mimi is in our special education office and does a lot of work with us on our tiered system of support that we operate throughout the state.
Good afternoon. And I have kind of become like the unofficial spokesperson for this because I love it. And I just want to tell you my experience and how that kind of came about. So we were in a staff meeting and someone came and was telling us about parentguidance.org. And they talked about how this is going to be great for family engagement. And from the special education perspective, that's huge because that is something that we push a lot. We're always looking for, trying to help people to figure out how to get better family engagement. So he also said, we suggest that you guys go on the website, sign up, and just see what it's about. So when you are presenting this, you understand what you're presenting and what people are doing, so you can be helpful. And so I thought, okay, that's good. I love to be prepared. Don't like to go into anything unprepared. So I'm going to go on there. And this is also going to be great for family engagement. So I pop on that website. And it was so simple. Like it was 1, 2, 3, you're in, you get a text, they set up an appointment. And I was like, wow, this is something that I could really see being useful for parents and so easy for them to be able to manage. So I set up this call and I start talking to my coach because it's a one-on-one coaching video on your phone or whatever. And I said, no, listen, I don't have any children in the school system anymore because my kiddos are older. I have a 30-year-old and a 20-year-old. And so I just want to see what's going on. And so she starts a really good conversation. And it's very non-threatening, very just kind of organic. And it just kind of developed. All of a sudden, before I know it, I have a personal goal that I'm working on. And I'm feeling refreshed. And I'm feeling really, really just encouraged. And so as we finished, I started thinking, wow, this is not directly for the children, but this is for the parents. And there are so many resources, so many things to help them, but also what a resource for the teachers. Like our teachers, they're struggling right now. I hear all the time how hard it is out there with the behaviors, with the things that kiddos are going through. It's another world. these resources are going to be game changers. And so I'm so thankful that you guys just really embraced it and have really taken the chance on it, because when we're healthier, we'll serve better. We'll serve all of our kiddos in the state better. We're talking about the tiered system of support. When you're looking at academics and behavior and mental health, when your mental health is good, that supports your behavior. It supports your academics. So anyway, thank you very much. Just the unofficial commercial. I want to feel that way.
I know. We're all going to sign up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Superintendent, I have a question. We know a lot of grandparents are serving as parents in some instances, but what about just this for grandparents?
Yeah, it is available basically to anyone in the state.
Yeah, but I mean, it would address the special relationship between a grandparent and, I know it's for anyone, but.
Right. They will, with the coaching, they will kind of customize to whatever your situation is. It's truly one-on-one with whatever situations that you're facing.
Okay.
It's Cook Center for Human Connection. It was successful in our 6 Project Aware counties, which is a federal grant that some of our counties had received. And so that's when Melanie Perkey and David Lee had brought it to me and said, this is something that could benefit all of our schools across and all of our staff across the state and parents.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda are the board member updates and requests for future information. We'll start with Dr. Stansberry.
Nothing this week. Thank you.
Mr. Gabriel, step out.
Yeah, before I'm going to speak to Leadership West Virginia in the morning, I'd just like to thank Kelly Talbot and Clinton Birch and Dave Cartwright for helping me assemble what I'm going to present tomorrow morning. Thank you guys very much. You are tremendous.
Mr. Wooten.
Yes, good meeting. I got a whole stack of these, and I mentioned this to Virginia. I probably won't use them because if you take these and put a QR code on the back of them, somebody takes a snapshot of it and then it puts it all in your contacts and you don't have to manually input. So you can carry 1 card or 2 cards. So it cuts down on paper and it's much more efficient. And since Mimi's got such a great program, maybe this could cohabitate on the back of a card, just maybe. But I don't use any of this on the back. So somebody in technology, Mr. Kelly, I'll show you my card if you're interested.
Thank you. Mrs. Sullivan.
Well, I did some policy work and was involved in an internal stakeholders meeting here with folks at the department and enjoy that. I also spent some time with students at one of the juvenile facilities. I like to check in on them every 6 weeks or so. And I attended the Communities and Schools site coordinator, and you were there too. You were there. And I also have had several conversations with the advisory council chairperson and others about the future of communities and schools, because it's such a great program. We want to keep it going. And I also participated in a wonderful scholarship event honoring rising college freshmen. And I just wanted to end my remarks here by just saying something about Virginia Harris, our secretary. Virginia has been the board secretary for 25 years. Before that, she spent about 20 years here at the department, serving in various roles. I first met Virginia when I worked here back in the day. I was the state reading coordinator, and Virginia was in the same office in her secretarial capacity. And so it has been wonderful to see her through the years move through teaching and learning. And then I know she did legal, and then she came to the board. So she has had a wealth of experience. And not only have we, the board, over the years benefited from her intelligence and her knowledge and her devotion, loyalty to the board. But people outside have been impacted by her and they don't even know it. People in the schools who have benefited from her good work on policy and other things, for answering parent phone calls, calling here, asking for information. So Virginia is retiring, and she will be missed. And I know I have a personal level of thanks to offer to you, because you have been, not only I can see you instrumental in the life of the educational system throughout the state, but you've also been a real bonus in my life to come back all these years later, 40 years or however many it's been later, to get to work with you again. It's been a real capstone on my career. So thank you, Virginia. And I know I speak on behalf of many.
From the Department of Education and the Board of Education for your esteemed career service. Thank you for your dedication to public education as demonstrated through your vast knowledge and insight of the state education policies and procedures. And we wish you the best in your return. Virginia, is there anything you would like to say?
And I know we have a lot of people across, the department and everywhere listening, but we have, the board actually will has a quick work session afterwards. And then Marlene Price will be sending out something across to the department, probably around 1:30 or so, for everyone to join us in a celebration of Virginia in the executive conference room.
Thank you. Thank you. With no other updates or requests for future information, Mr. Gabriel, you didn't have anything? You had stepped out, and Dr. Slavey must have left. Next item on the agenda is future meetings. And the attachment is the schedule for the meetings from now through next August. So I do need to hear a motion to approve that meeting schedule found in the attachment. Been moved by Mrs. Sullivan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gabriel. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? So the next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held September 11th here in Charleston. So now it is my pleasure to ask for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Wooten has moved to adjourn. Do I hear a second? We'll say Mr. Dunleavy second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very, very much. So we will get some lunch and come back here and be ready for our work session, our training with accountability.